for burial. Pharaoh sends a detachment. Listen to this. Pharaoh sends a detachment of royal guards with Joseph. Here's my question. When you and I have always read that account of Yaakov's funeral, and the royal guards were with Joseph, right, in the royal funeral, right, on the way from Mitzrayim to Canaan, right, the land of Canaan, we always thought, wow, Yaakov really had a lot of honor, right? Because Joseph was going with him, and all Pharaoh's court, all the guards, the royal guards, were going to honor Jacob. I submit to you something else. They were going to keep an eye on Joseph. Because his heart had changed from Menashe to Ephraim.
Gotcha. I'm feeling you. I'm feeling you. That's, oh, wow.
That whole royal procession from Mitzrayim was not to celebrate that Jews or Israelites' life. It was to keep an eye on Yosef. Yosef was up to something because he had seen the land of greatness and promotion and four-cup ministry turning sour, and he now began to see Egypt as a land of affliction, and this was hundreds of years before the people of Israel were enslaved in that very same land. There was an unsettling in this Israelite even before the days of Moshe and Aharon.
Wow.
And so to ensure Joseph's return, because they were afraid, what was Joseph going to do? They were afraid Joseph was going to stay in Israel. They were afraid Joseph was going to stay in Israel. They weren't going to honor Jacob. Come on. Baruch Hashem Yahweh.
Oh, man.
That's like the president of the Southern Baptist Convention going to the Pope's funeral in Rome. I didn't see him there, did you?
You never know.
Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Let's not even go there. So when Yaakov dies, Yosef accompanies him to Canaan, but I submit to you that the Mitzrayim royal guard or the royal procession was there to make sure Yosef did not go to Canaan and stay in Israel, but would return to Mitzrayim. Yosef, like Ephraim his son, today, Yosef, who is Yosef today? The 10 tribes of non-Jewish Israel. How many born-again believers do we have here today? How many born-again, how many non-Jewish believers do we have? You are Joseph.
Right.
You are Joseph. You are the 10 tribes of Israel in exile. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. So, the truth of the matter is Yosef began to see Egypt differently. Like Ephraim today, who often sits in royalty but is still in bondage. You could love the blood of Yeshua and the 4 cups, thy will be done, thy will be done, thy will be done. How Yeshua beautifully, magnificently took those 4 cups of I will and turned them into the 4 cups of thy will. Isn't that beautiful? Every time we take those 4 cups at Pesach, we're remembering how Yeshua had 4 cups of I will, but because of his submission to the Father, turned them into the 4 cups of thy will. Isn't that beautiful?
Beautiful.
But it's not just that. The 4 cups remind us that Yosef is rich in New York, in Hollywood, in Monte Carlo, in España. Joseph is rich in the West. But Yahweh said one day he would whistle for Yosef, and Yosef would return to Yahweh and Torah and to the Jews and to the land of Israel, because Yosef, Yahweh said he would whistle, and Yosef would come trembling from the West. And brothers and sisters, that whistle is not the whistle they use at a hockey game. It is the great shofar. Amen. Yahweh will whistle from Ephraim, and Ephraim will come trembling from the West, where he sits as king of Egypt. On Wall Street, with stocks and bonds and funds that are mutually exclusive, funds that are mutually connected and connected. Ephraim doesn't just own stock in Procter & Gamble. Ephraim runs Procter & Gamble, the Ford Motor Company, Southwest Airlines. Ephraim's got bucks, man. It's not just the rich Jews, it's the rich Ephraimites. lot of those rich Ephraimites have more money than the rich Jews, and a lot of those Jews you think are rich ain't that rich.
Yep, that's true.
And if you think all Jews are rich, I'll take a tour with you down on Washington Street in Miami Beach. You and me will take a tour, and I'll show you all the rich Jews with holes in their shoes.
Yep. Amen.
Some of y'all Ephraimites got more money than the Jews. Don't look at me that holy. You can eat to cough up some of it so this Jew can eat.
Nah, I know I done heard a lot.
I've been eating very well recently. I do plan on improving my diet when Pesach rolls around.
You need to cut that out.
Baruch Hashem Yahweh. So Joseph, like Yoseph in Mitzrayim,
You need to cut that out.
is royalty, but still in bondage. So the 4 cups of Yosef, listen, remind us that Yosef is rich. In reality, though, he remains what? In exile today, in the West, mostly. A slave, miserable, and naked. And when Yosef is on his deathbed, what does he do? He furthers his new understanding by requesting his Israelite brothers and seeing them as his trip home rather than his afflicted past. When he dies, he says, put your hand to my hip and swear that you'll carry my bones out of this place. You will not leave me in Mitzrayim. I'll leave my royalty, I'll leave my riches, I'll leave my throne, I'll leave my delicacy, I'll leave my exalted position, I will leave all those things behind. If you swear to me that when you make Aliyah, that you take me with you. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. A shocking request, wouldn't you say, for a man who had it all? He made a request, and there was no slave conditions. This is a man who wanted to get the heck out of Mitzrayim, and his people weren't even slaves. Don't forget that. His people weren't slaves till hundreds of years later. But he already began to see himself not as the second to Pharaoh, but as a slave away from his Hebraic brethren. So the 4 cups of Yosef were not that attractive. They were enough to raise him to worldly power by interpreting the butler's dream and the forementions of the cups in the dream of the butler, but they couldn't keep him in the true riches reserved in heaven that fadeth not away, reserved for you by the blood of Mashiach. He had not experienced true redemption. He had experienced personal deliverance, but a limited one at that. It was a limited deliverance. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. This request to remove his bones from Mitzrayim, during the Exodus, was fulfilled by Moshe Rabbeinu himself. Did you notice Moshe did it? Did you notice when those bones were taken from Mitzrayim, it wasn't left to the, it wasn't the janitor who did it, it wasn't the former slaves who did it. It was Moshe who got the body. Did you get that? That's the priority Yahweh puts on Yosef coming home. Of taking Yosef's 4 cups and turning them into the national 4 cups of redemption that Yeshua drank in the Garden of Gethsemane. He wants to take the 4 cups of Yosef and turn them into the 4 cups of true redemption in Yeshua. Make sense? I said, make sense?
Makes sense.
Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Moshe fulfilled that request as our ancestors departed Mitzrayim. But what did Yosef know? He knew, listen, that all was peaceful, all was prosperous in Mitzrayim, but he saw things differently. Yahweh would take him out of Mitzrayim, a land where he was comfortable and secure. You know why he was taken out of Mitzrayim? Yosef came to a point in his life where he realized he too was a slave. Would to Yahweh that people in Sunday churches would begin to see themselves as Joseph and not as those who have made it in the West. If all our brothers and sisters in churches began to see themselves as in slavery, not in freedom, they would have a desire to return to the things of Yahweh and to Zion like the rest of us. They would have that same desire. And that's what we need to pray for. That's what we need to hope for. That's what we need to seek. Because Joseph is every Sunday morning, in many cases, sitting on pews, and they think they're comfortable, they think they're secure. The truth is they're still in bondage. Despite the trappings of wealth and the trappings of power, Joseph, ultimately this was not his land. Mitzrayim was not his land. He rose into prominence, but the more he rose, the more he felt alienated from his people. Hello? The very prominence and position he had, the more power and the more position away from Israel, the more of a slave he was. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yosef can get everything right. All their doctrines, all their money, all their finances, their homes, their material, their possession. But until they are reunited with their heritage, they will be miserable, poor, blind, and naked. And they will no longer begin to see their offspring and their surroundings as Manasseh, that the affliction is a thing of the past. They'll begin to see Ephraim and Ephraimites all around them saying, whoa, wait a second. I need to be delivered before the rest of my people are delivered. That's how you became an Ephraimite. You weren't going to wait for the rest of your people to be delivered. You realized you needed deliverance even now when things look comfortable, when things look secure, when things look like they were comfortable. You knew you needed deliverance now. Before the rest of your people experience that deliverance. Hello? Make sense? Baruch Hashem Yahweh. So the more he rose in prominence, the more power he had, the more material things he had, he saw himself in need of exodus before there was an exodus. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. That is Ephraim's position today, brothers and sisters. They're comfortable, prominent, powerful, members of the rich and famous communities of the world. While the rest of his family lived in security and tranquility, Yosef had a vision of who he was in the future. The Bible does not, listen, the Bible does not record his brother's reaction to request the transfer of his remains to Israel. Do you understand? Do you notice that? How did his brothers feel about taking him out of Mitzrayim? You notice the Bible is silent about that? Did you notice that? The Bible has nothing to say about that. You know why? Because nothing has changed. They didn't want to do it. He made them swear to it. Judah doesn't want to help Ephraim unless Ephraim puts Judah's feet to the fire and makes him swear to take him home and say, look, come hell or high water, I'm going to be like Ruth. Your people are my people. Your land is my land. Where you go, I'll go. Where you'll be buried, I'll be buried. I will grab the tzitzit of them who is called the born-again Yehudi, and I will go with you, because now I know and understand that Yahweh is with you, and I will cleave to you even when you push me away, even when you try to leave me behind. I will cleave to you. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Todah Rabah Yahweh. So his brothers never understood why he wanted his bones removed from the place he had become successful. Was this another crazy dream? I mean, didn't Yosef have enough crazy dreams when it came to his brothers? Is this another crazy dream? Take me out of this place? The place where you're a success? What's changed? Yosef is successful. Our call is for him, what? To give up his material success and gain the unsearchable riches of Mashiach. Amen?
Amen.
Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Why would Yosef ever want to leave the land that welcomed him and in which he was prospering? Have they learned to respect Joseph's insight and uncanny insight, causing them, listen, to wonder about their prospects for the future? You know something? Joseph knew something. He knew that he was in exile. He knew he needed redemption. Same today. When Ephraim drinks the 4 cups next week, how many Ephraimites plan on drinking those 4 cups? When Ephraim drinks the 4 cups on Pesach, they will do so with the insight, the understanding, the wisdom, the da'at, the binah, the discernment of their father, Yosef. That same gift of discernment resides in you that resided in Yosef. You are drinking those 4 cups with the confidence that even though you are comfortable in the exile, that Yeshua spilled the 4 cups of my will and turned them to match the 4 cups of Mitzrayim, thy will. And by drinking the 4 cups of thy will and forsaking the 4 cups of my will, you, like Yosef, will have your remains taken to the land, the people, and the culture of Israel. Amen. When you drink those 4 cups next Pesach, you will say, you are making a declaration statement. I rather, like Moshe and like the rest of my brothers, endure the afflictions of the people of Yahweh than enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season. Amen. I will rather endure the afflictions of the people of Yahweh like Moshe, like Yosef, and I, like Yosef, have had a change of mind. I, like Yosef, have had a change of heart. I, like Joseph, have had a change of understanding. I used to think I was comfortable in Christianity when I was an NTOC, when I was a Sunday-keeping, New Testament-only Christian. But now I see that in my comfort zone, I have become dependent and independent from Yahweh, separated from the Commonwealth of Israel, without hope. And by drinking those 4 cups, you're saying, I am putting the 4 cups of Yosef on the table. And like Yeshua, I'm taking the 4 cups of my will and turning them into the 4 cups of nevertheless, thy will be done. Nevertheless, I'll give up my job at Merrill Lynch. Nevertheless, I'll give up my grandchildren in Great Britain. Nevertheless, I'll give up my fancy 2-sided business cards and go work on a kibbutz in Israel and celebrate Pesach and experience the personal scorn of my family, who will promise me they will never talk to me again if I become Jewish. But with Joseph's understanding, Joseph's wisdom, you realize you are not becoming Jewish, you are becoming Israel, and you're forsaking Mitzrayim, and the only way you could become Israel is to ask someone to carry your remains. Because I have news for you. After being in religion for so many years, there's not much left of you and me to carry.
Yes. That's true. They ate us all up.
Sunday, rosary beads, Blessed Mother worship, holy water, unholy water, Mountain Dew, unholy Mountain Dew, holy Mountain Dew. There's not much left. There's not much left of us. By the time the world, Mitzrayim, is through with you, what do you have? Your remains. And you got nothing left to lose. Yeshua said, if you do not forsake all that's left, you cannot be my Talmid.
Amen.
The comfort, the jobs, the security, the careers, the materialism, the real estate, the estate that's real and the estate that's not so real.
Amen.
Your fancy schmancy mafia shoes.
Uh-oh.
I can't believe I said that. You might have to leave those behind too and allow your fellow Israelites to carry your remains. Because like your father Yosef, that same spirit that can discern the times and the seasons and the dreams and the insight, the mind of Yahweh is in you. And you're saying, I'm going to be drinking these 4 cups because what I used to count as important, now I count all things lost for the glory of the excellency of the knowledge of Moshiach Yeshua, my master and my place in Israel, his people, somebody. I count all things lost, that I may gain the excellency of the knowledge of him, that by any means I may attain to the resurrection of the dead.
Come on.
I count all things now but dung, Please, somebody, Yahweh, his people, his rabbis, his leaders, his evangelists, take my remains out of Mitzrayim. My thinking has changed. My remains are more worthful now than all my power and glory were worth before.
Amen.
Baruch Hashem Yahweh. So, listen, Ephraim, when you drink those 4 cups, you're identifying with the mind change that took place in your father Yoseph so many years ago. Isn't that neat? You're identifying with that heart and mind change.
Thank you.
That you haven't become Israel to become more Jewish than the Jews. You become Israel to learn the true riches, the true power, the true immortality, the true Father, the true covenants, and the true one who is greater than Pharaoh, whom you served before. Joseph realized, listen, Joseph realized he was a slave before the rest of Israel realized he was a slave. When you drink those 4 cups next week, you know what you're saying? I've come to realize Joseph was right. Only thing I have left to give Yahweh is my remains. But a little in the hand of Yahweh is more than everything in the world.
Amen.
Joseph, humbled and redeemed, is greater than the majority. Make sense? Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Yosef had insight and knew the future. He wanted his remains removed from Mitzrayim. He knew he was in exile. He had come to realize he needed redemption. He had come to realize he needed to return. Same today. The 4 cups speak not only, listen, of the confidence that though Ephraim is comfortable in their exile, in large part, it is the blood of Yeshua alone that can give them a change of heart, a change of mind, bring them back to Zion and to the things of Zion. So the 4 cups of Yosef are turned into the 4 cups of Yeshua. As Yosef says, it used to be grandma's will. It used to be grandpa's will. I went to church because they went to church. I kept Sunday because they kept Sunday. I didn't know any better. But Yahweh, like Yosef, I see myself as a slave, even when other people in my own nation don't see themselves as slave. And Yahweh, I wasted a lot of years in materialism and self-sufficiency and independence, but whatever I have remaining, please take it with me. And when you try to leave Mitzrayim and the confines of Mitzrayim, don't you know Pharaoh's going to send his royal guards to make sure you don't stay in Passover? There'll be people. Wow, can we talk?
Yes.
Amen.
Come on.
Brother Simon, can we talk?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, brother.
True.
Yes, please.
When you're going to be celebrating Pesach next week, there are going to be folks praying you out of the mess you done got yourself into.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, sir.
What a mess you made out of your life. You were a Cambridge boy.
Uh-huh.
You were not only going to go to graduate from Cambridge and go to Colgate, you were even brushing your teeth with Colgate.
All righty.
You were on your way to being somebody. And now look at you, sitting in a backyard with birds flying overhead with a bunch of lost Jews.
You been there.
Been there, done that.
Even the barbecue don't work.
Oh my God.
You traded in future at Colgate to hang out with a bunch of Jews. Man, and when you, next Pesach, there'll be people praying for you. You know that. Baruch Hashem Yahweh.
Baruch Hashem Yahweh.
But I submit to you that like your father Yosef, you realize your condition of slavery before the nation awakens. And that's why you've come out of her, my people. Kiliana 18:4. You realize your condition when a lot of people in our nation still don't realize their condition. That's why you're blessed among all men.
Thank you.
You see yourself in a condition before the rest of the people.
Thank you, Father.
You're blessed.
Praise be to Yahweh.
Baruch Hashem Yahweh.
Baruch Hashem Yahweh.
So the 4 cups are your opportunity to make a declarative statement that the 4 cups are your will now being put at the Passover table, because it was not Buddha who celebrated Pesach with his Talmidim, it was Yeshua.
That's right.
Tell it.
So you're giving, you like your master, don't you and I want to be like our master?
Yahweh be Yahweh.
So we take our 4 cups that got us temporary recognition and elevation in the things of Mitzrayim, and we trade them in for the 4 true cups of blood redemption of Messiah Yeshua at his Pesach table and the night in his suffering in Gethsemane. The garden of oppression. The garden of the squeezing of the olives. Pressure, stress. So much pressure and stress, he developed a medical condition and he began to sweat, as it were, great drops of blood.
Yes.
He began bleeding for the redemption of the world right there in the garden. And Yeshua bled how many times in the garden? 7 times.